All right. Sorry about the get off this morning, but trying to do some new things. So good morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is June 11th, 8:02 a.m., and we're going to get rolling. I'm joined this morning by Chef Talks Lions. What's happening this morning, man?
Hey, man, nothing much. Same old, same old.
Let me get your volume turned up a little bit here. So good morning to everybody in the chat. We got a light crew this morning, but we're going to get it rolling anyway. Yesterday, we kind of left off with the top 10 NFL teams that were in line to win the Super Bowl this year, according to multiple different platforms, PFF, CBS, you name it. Rich Eisen, they all kind of put out this top 10 in June, way too early in June predictions. And I played along. So we kind of finished off with number 5. But first, let's start with some news that broke yesterday about the Lions making a move. And that is the Lions waive Steel Chambers. They picked up Ben Nyman. And according to multiple sources, the Detroit Lions are bolstering their linebacking core and special teams depth ahead of next month's training camp by signing Ben Nyman, who does come with a lot of NFL experience already. The move was confirmed by Detroit News yesterday through sources. But a little info here on Ben. So 6-year veteran, spent his first 4 seasons of his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. He went undrafted out of Iowa University. No, that didn't mix with Jack Campbell. They never played together. Nor Laporta, obviously. But he signed with Arizona as a free agent in 2022 and appeared in 17 games for the Cardinals. He did win a Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. But the last season with the Cardinals, he had 9 starts. He set a career high with 70 tackles. Nyman did split last season in 2023 with Denver's practice squad and the active roster. He appeared in 7 games. He spent about half the year on the practice squad before being elevated to the Broncos 53-man. And again, he was a fixture on their special teams unit. He earned a 79.1 PFF grade for special teams, which is pretty solid. Matter of fact, so solid that he ranked 53rd among 662 qualifying special teamers in the NFL. For his career, he stands 6'2", 235 pounds. He's played in 86 games. He's made 21 starts. He averages 230 snaps per season. Now, with the loss of Anthony Pittman in free agency this season, there is an opening for a key special teamer, or somebody that can kind of play both positions there, linebacker, backup and special teams. Competition is still heavy, though, with Deron Gilbert, as the Lions did waive Steel Chambers yesterday. So any thoughts on Ben Nyman? Quite honestly, I can't even tell you that I've heard of the guy. I don't know really much about him.
Well, I haven't heard much about him either, but I can always add a spin to it. So I'm just going to say with him, Germ, and Vaki, we are definitely going to have the all special teams team. We are going to have the Pro Bowl special teams unit out there. And he's got Super Bowl experience. He's got a ring. So
I love it.
You can't discount that.
No, I love the experience factor, right? And I think when you look around the Detroit Lions roster, you'll see that they're adding experience. And the other thing is they're adding, guys to this team that have, if you go back and look at the teams that they played last year, where these players have come from, whether it's Carlton Davis or Amik Robertson, now Ben Nyman, they have a heavy influence on the games that they played last year being games that, the Lions are going to have to play this year, teams that they're going to have to play this year. So they're almost bringing in guys that have this immediate experience already with, who they went up against last year is the same kind of team that they're gonna meet again this year, which I don't know how many people value this. I do. I think there's a very high value factor on bringing in experience that has immediate experience with the team that you're going up against. Now, just like the Lions, I mean, you have 30% of roster attrition every single season, it seems like. And, it's a little bit of a different team, but that's more of the bottom end of the team. It's not usually the top end of the team. Depends on how active they were in free agency. What I do love about him is the experience factor already. And to your point, the guy's got a ring. So he has the wherewithal of what it takes to get there, and being in an Andy Reid system. One of the best systems in the NFL for many years now. So he gets it at a high level. I think that he's obviously a Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes kind of guy if he's made his way to this team. So let's not discount Ben right off the get. I think that there's an opportunity for him to make some noise. At any rate, it's competition. So I think that they're really putting an emphasis on special teams. They always have. I mean, they love all three phases. So I think that this is just another move for them to get better in an area. Anything you want to add this morning before we kind of finish out the top five? And we'll probably be jumping off right around 9:15 this morning.
Yeah, I see there's a Bears fan. And I just want to let him know that we have to keep making moves, man, because the Bears, they are making moves. They made a frightening move. If you didn't see, they signed Mercedes Lewis. That's a Super Bowl move right there. So I don't know what we're going to do with who's going to cover Mercedes Lewis. I mean, that's the thing. Who on our team is going to be able to cover someone like Mercedes Lewis? He is brought there to help the young pup, Caleb Williams. I don't know what he's going to help him do. I don't know if he's supposed to be having like if he's going to be a receiving threat. I don't know what Mercedes Lewis is going to do in Chicago, but he's there and we have to figure it out.
I guess, and I guess good morning, Broski Bear. You welcome into the Detroit Lions talk show here, morning show, Rock Down Detroit Lions and Rise and Grind morning show. I would say this, anybody's coverable. I think that they've done an excellent job at fixing the back end of their defense. So I know this about Amik Robertson. He is not afraid to stack up against anybody. That dude is a bulldog. But can he match up against Mercedes? I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
It's going to be tough, man. All right, I'm going to turn my sarcasm filter off, and we can go ahead and
I'll tell you what. I did find something interesting out yesterday about Darren Waller. I don't know how many people have heard about this or even really how old it is, but the fact that he abruptly retired, from the NFL. Crazy situation, man. Listening to his show, or he was on a show, so listening to the podcast that he was on and explaining what happened, I still don't understand like what led to him not being able to breathe, but all of a sudden not being able to breathe, and he was sitting on a chair, finally was able to call 911 and couldn't speak to him, like couldn't talk. He was able to barely get it out, He said they finally got my address. I mean, it's safe to assume they already knew where you were. I mean, they ping your phone, they know where you are. But he went and put a shoe in the door and held the door open for them to come in. And he said that he was just sitting in the chair, couldn't breathe. He would take a big, deep breath and hold it as long as he could and try not to breathe. And then every time he breathed out, he'd go, help, help. I mean, just listening to him say that. I mean, it was like, I was hurting inside, like, man, that is rough, right? He said as the lights started to go out, he started to go. All of a sudden, he woke up and there was a mask on him and there was a police officer standing over top of him, and he was back to life. And he doesn't know if he actually went or not, or how long he was out, but they must have got there right in the nick of time. So, I mean, humbling listen yesterday, listening to Darren Waller and just how fragile life is. And the most important thing I think I took from what he said is, as I was going, I don't know if I was happy with the way my life was.
Yep.
And that's just, it makes you really think, just again, how fragile life is, but are we doing enough? Are we doing enough that when we leave, we feel good about it? And the fact that he's an NFL, player, I mean, you would think that you would feel good about where you've been and what you've done. You've made it to the top, and he wasn't satisfied. So wish him nothing but the best. I'm glad that he's okay, but man, such an incredible player too. I don't think that there's enough respect that goes on his name for just how good he was as a tight end. I mean, he was probably one of the best, even though he didn't get, an opportunity to really play with the best teams. He still was a very good player when he was on the field. So anything you want to add to Darren Waller?
I didn't actually see the whole podcast. I just saw the part where he was talking about, how his life wasn't going the way that he wanted it to go as he was leaving out, or he wasn't sure. And the only thing that I could think of is maybe he wants to do more. I mean, he's obviously had this recent divorce. And I don't know what happened. I've heard that there was some improprieties or something. So he just wants to work on himself, and also because he's a former addict, he's in recovery, and he's spoken very openly about this. So he may just want to do more in that space. He may want to be a person that just kind of actively is touching lives and actively is helping people get the help that they need and things of this nature. So I can see it. We love football. We're fans of the game. Many of us have played the game at some level, and most of us aren't NFL football players, so we can look at NFL football players and be like, yeah, you made it to the top and everything, but sometimes for them that's not it. So I can see a few different avenues where he may want to get into post career. But shout out Darren Waller, and hopefully all the best to him.
Yeah, man. Intriguing story that came across yesterday. Matter of fact, Pat McAfee was the one that woke me up to it. Caught his short video on it yesterday, and that's where you could watch some of the conversation. Was on Pat McAfee episode yesterday. So, All right, let's get into this top 10. I think we finished off with Houston, and I kind of gave you a rundown of where I was going to be today. So Houston at number 5. And let me recap kind of where I was. I forgot to make the changes, but starting out with number 10, I had the Rams at number 10. I left the Cowboys at number 9. I threw the Jets out in place of the Chargers at number 8. Number 7, we had the Browns. I can't remember if I made a change to the Browns or not now, because I forgot to write it down. Packers at number 6. Go ahead.
I think you may have moved the Browns out.
I might have. I don't remember who I put in place of them, though. Number 6, I did leave the Packers at number 6. I still think that they have enough weapons on that team that it just depends on whether the right Jordan Love is going to show up. No, I don't have the Bears in the top 10. Neither did anybody else, broski. Sorry. You guys are in a rebuilding phase. The one thing I will say, since we have a Bears fan in here this morning, is I have to ask you an honest question. When you look at the success of the Detroit Lions, now, albeit minor amount of success, right? 3 seasons is total 180. We went from, being nobodies to now we've arrived, right? But we have to stay there. The realistic fans have recognized that we have to stay there. We're not coming in, as the best team that you've got to knock us off. I mean, we still have to fight, claw, and scratch for everything that we deserve in this league. The Bears, with Ryan Poles buying a franchise, buying a team, buying all of these players that you're mentioning this morning. How do you feel that that's going to last? And how do you feel that that is going to create a level of continuity and development for a Bears team that really hasn't drafted as well as that maybe they should have, or developed a lot of their own guys and manage their caps? I mean, so they're spending a lot of money, right? They're buying all of these free agents, but who have they really homegrown? That's the key difference, I think, between the Bears and the Lions. I think the Packers are doing it right. I think that the Vikings are kind of in the same boat as the Bears right now. They're buying a lot of their team, but they're kind of in that beginning stage of rebuilding. So that would be my question to you, Broski Bear, is, where do you see the Bears in 2, 3, 4 years from now, as opposed to where they could have been potentially had they just developed? And maybe they just don't have the right developmental coaches yet. That's what I worry about. And I mean, not that I worry. I mean, I really don't care. But for the Bears, I feel like their cap situation is going to become more of a problem quicker than it ever would be in Detroit, because we have, guys that we've drafted that, we've grown and put into this, positions that they are now. So I think that's the big difference. Anything you want to add to that?
The only thing that I can say about the Bears in development is they've never been able to develop a quarterback.
Very true.
I mean, never in the history of their franchise, which is crazy. We've had really bad teams. We've had really bad stretches, but we've had somewhat, I guess we could say throughout, we had fair to decent quarterback play. We had years where we made the wrong draft choice, like Joey Harrington. We had journeyman starters like John Kitna. But say what you want about Stafford, and I definitely want to say some things, but Stafford was good. He was good for us. I always say that he didn't win anything, because he didn't. And Jared Goff came in and won 2 playoff games in 3 years. But Stafford was good for us. But I think the overall, or the overarching achievement that we have in developing quarterbacks is in recent times with Jared Goff, because Jared Goff is not the quarterback that he was when he came to Detroit. He's a much better version. He has evolved. He has been taught how to play the game at the pro level, which he was not taught in Los Angeles. So with that being a recent thing, it's possible that Caleb Williams could be the first one that they will be able to develop and keep.
It'll be interesting. I have zero confidence in Caleb Williams. I think he is more of a distraction than I believe that he is going to help this team win. I think he's more of a distraction. Let's just all pray. There's a bee in my studio this morning, so let's just hope that I don't get stung, because I am allergic and I do not have an EpiPen. So why don't you just go away, bee, and leave me alone? Who is the Bears quarterback coach? Kerry Joseph. I've never heard of this guy. So Kerry Joseph is the quarterback's coach for Chicago Bears. He was hired in 2024, so this year, after spending 4 seasons as an assistant quarterback's coach for the Seattle Seahawks, which, hey, learning under the Seahawks regime, that's a good place to come from. So now he's under Bears offensive coordinator Shane Waldron, which I don't even know much about Shane Waldron. But Joseph
he came from the Seahawks as well. Yeah, I think he was their offensive coordinator last year.
So they plucked the Seahawks tree. So Joseph has 8 years of coaching experience, including 4 in the NFL and 4 at the collegiate level. He also played professional football for nearly 20 years in the NFL, the CFL, NFL Europe, and the World League. Mostly as a safety, though, for the Seahawks. So that's interesting to me. You have a safety as a quarterback's coach instead of a Mark Brunell, who was a pretty damn good quarterback, being your quarterback's coach. That's interesting to me. So I guess I'm not sold, and I'm not picking on you, broski, but I'm just not sold. We'll move on. Top 5. Drum roll, don't have it, but here we go. Houston. I'm going to go ahead and leave Houston in at number 5. Reasons are, I think their defense is extremely scary. They got really good in the offseason. The Houston Texans made substantial improvements during the 2024 offseason. No, I don't believe CJ Stroud is going to have a sophomore slump. They addressed some key areas and really set themselves up for potential success this season. Here are the main ways they really got better. So free agent acquisitions, clearly number 1, Danielle Hunter. Matching him up on the other side with Will Anderson is crazy. The Texans signed edge rusher Danielle Hunter on a 2-year deal worth $48 million this offseason. He's coming off a season with the Vikings, 15.5 sacks. He's adding some significant firepower to the Houston's pass rush. And then you have Azeez Al-Shaair, signing linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair on a 3-year deal, $34 million. He brings in a proven defensive playmaker who recorded 163 tackles last season. So when we were talking about DeAndre Levy yesterday, and we thought, hey, who on this team is going to have, that kind of an impact? Well, I didn't think that anybody has had that many tackles in a long time. Aziz Al-Shaair had it last year, 163. Mm-hmm. Crazy. He brings familiarity, though, with head coach DeMeco Ryans. Is it DeMeco or DeMarco? I don't know how you pronounce his name. DeMeco Ryans. Yeah. From their time with the 49ers, add some pretty valuable continuity and leadership to this team. And then you have Danico Autry. I mean, come on here. The Texans signed defensive end Danico Autry on a 2-year deal, $20 million, enhancing their defensive line depth. Then you've got Dalton Schultz. They re-signed tight end Dalton Schultz on a 3-year deal. Ensures that quarterback C.J. Stroud retains a reliable target. And then you have Stephon Diggs. So they added the headache of Stephon Diggs, but maybe he finds resurgence in Texas. They traded for the Texans wide receiver with the Bills. Obviously, we know that he was having some issues there in Buffalo, and he moved on. But this addition gives Stroud a top-tier receiving threat and option to complete the existing talents. You got Nico Collins, Tank Dell. So they have an extreme amount of athletic ability around both sides of the ball. And then draft picks. Adonai Mitchell. They drafted wide receiver Adonai Mitchell in the first round. Adds another dynamic playmaker to that receiving core. And then Jeremiah Trotter. The Texans selected linebacker Jeremiah Trotter. I mean, what a great year to bring in a rookie linebacker to learn from the plethora of amazing talent that's already on this team. I mean, when you talk about adding players to give them the best opportunity to succeed, it's giving them a veteran leadership around them that really helps them grow and develop. Overall impact of the offseason here for the Texans, though, these moves collectively position the Texans to build upon their impressive 23 season, where I actually called it. I said that C.J. Stroud is going to be the best quarterback in the draft, and I said that the Texans were going to be the sneakiest team coming up to play well last season. Same exact thing I've given to the Cardinals this year. We'll see if I can double down, but I've given the Cardinals that same type of impression that I feel like they're going to be the 2023 Texans of 24. Now the Texans achieved the 10-7 overall record last year, won the AFC South. The additions this offseason, with proven veterans like Hunter, Al-Shaair, Autry, and Diggs, combined with retaining key players like Schultz and targeting promising draft picks, significantly strengthened both sides of the offense and defense. With C.J. Stroud continuing to develop as one of the league's top quarterbacks, even after one season, the Texans are poised to be very strong contenders in the AFC again this year. Do you have any issues with the Texans at number 5?
I have issues with the Texans at number 5 just because I'm kind of afraid of them. I'm not gonna lie. I don't have issues with where they are. I just have an issue with how good they are. That's just not fair. I have a theory about Stephon Diggs. And my theory about Stephon Diggs is he's one meltdown closer to playing with his brother. So he positioned himself. He got out of Minnesota, got out of Buffalo. Now he's in the state of Texas. He wants to go to the Cowboys, play with his brother. So he's going to need to sabotage the Texans this year, throw a fit, and hopefully get signed by Jerry Jones. And I think that's his plan. Otherwise, I would say that he would just be happy playing in the same state as his brother. They can hang out a lot more, and he will not be such a malcontent. He won't be a cancer. But I don't believe that Stephon Diggs can go anywhere without being a cancer. And the thing that I said before about Stephon Diggs is he is addition by subtraction for the Bills. I think he's subtraction by addition for the Texans. I don't know how long it's going to take him to blow up that locker room. I hope it happens around November 10th.
So PFF, in this one instance of their rankings, and I'm looking right now, and it looks like they've changed. They've completely changed. Well, no, this is back on March 4th. It looks like they had the Texans as the 3rd team. But recently, for their June edition, they had the Texans as the 7th team to win the Super Bowl. So they had them the 7th best odds or best team projected to win the Super Bowl in 2024. Now, Rich Eisen had them right where I do here at number 5. And I'm good with that. Like I'm in agreement with Richard Eisen on this. I think that there is no reason why Houston Texans belong outside the top 5. I think that they've only gotten better in the offseason. They've retained, everybody that was necessary and then added all these key signings and draft picks that they're doing it right in Houston. They really are. They're rebuilding the right way. So Houston Texans at number 5. I'd like to know what the chat thinks. Where do you guys have the Texans? And, early picks right now, are the Lions going to win at NRG Stadium, November 10th? Are we going to pull off an epic win? Because that is one of the games that I've got circled on the calendar, not only for a bus trip that you can find on eventbrite.com, but also as a game that we could lose this year. Could be one of the away games that we could lose. It's a very, very tough defense. We've gone up against tough defenses last season, but I think this one takes the cake. I think the Houston Texans could have the best defense in the league by the year's end. That's just what I believe. Any comments on that?
That is a bold statement, Cotton. Let's see how that works out. Man, like I said, just the Will Harris and Danielle Hunter thing alone is just frightening. And just to address any Lions fans, I don't know if you have any of these guys in the chat where they were killing Brad Holmes for not getting Danielle Hunter.
Oh yeah,
Danielle Hunter was a target of Brad Holmes. He tried to get him from the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, the Vikings were like kick rocks. We already gave you JMO, and then you gave us Hawkinson, who we had to pay all that money, and then he's injured anyway. So they were probably a little bit salty.
And that was to clarify, though, that was the trade deadline. Yeah,
right. And again, Danielle Hunter is from the Houston area, and he came out and said personally that he was willing to take a little bit less money to go home. So once he hit free agency, he was not signing with the Lions. It didn't matter what Brad Holmes did.
Yeah,
he wanted to go home.
Yep.
And he's going to have a boost because he's playing in front of his home crowd. He's got friends, he's got family there. And that's where he wanted to be. So he's already happy being there. So you got Will Harris, who not Will. Why did I call him Will Harris? Sorry.
Will Anderson.
Will Anderson. Sorry, Will Anderson.
Yeah.
I just slandered you big time there. Shout out Will Harris. Great guy. Great guy. I hope he lands on his feet somewhere not in Detroit, very far away from Detroit. But so you got Will Anderson, who was the defensive rookie of the year last season. Like I said, that's already scary. And then you got that interior pass rush with Danico Autry, Aziz Al-Shire. Again, very comfortable because DeMeco Ryans was his defensive coordinator in San Francisco. So one other thing that I think can derail their secondary, and I'm just grasping at straws here, and I think you know what I'm going to say. They are employing Jeff Okudah.
Oh boy. Yeah, but I mean, is he really going to play much? Is he going to get a starting job?
He's not going to play, but the thing that we hope, especially on November 10th, all right,
is that he is playing.
Get your tickets on Eventbrite and get on that bus. I won't be there because I'm in Australia and the bus doesn't come here. But the thing that we can hope is, number one, that he will play. And number two, that he will have the same kind of effect because he is a Patricia. He's from that era. So we hope that he has the same kind of effect that Matt Patricia had on the Philadelphia Eagles last season. That's all I got.
So shout out to Michael Garrity. He thinks that the Detroit Lions in 2024 are going to make a run at the 72 Dolphins. Wow. I would love to see it, and I think a lot of us have had trouble with the schedule because when you look at the schedule, it is very difficult to find losses. And I think the ones that really glare at you, the Texans are one of them that you've got to circle, right? I mean, that's just one of the best teams in the NFL that you're going up against. Are the Lions going to lose a worthless game this year? I don't know. You know, are they going to have a game that they should win handily and they just somehow cough it up? I would hope that they don't. I don't think that this team is built that way. But it was really difficult for me to find 4 losses, but I was uncomfortable, with 15-2, which is really where I thought the Lions could finish this year. But I was just uncomfortable right now without going through training camp to kind of feel out where this team is to kind of give a final prediction, which I'll do before, the year starts, but before week 1. So number 4, Rich Eisen had go ahead.
I just wanted to say something on the 72 Dolphins. I think the 72 Dolphins were playing 14 games. Is that correct?
They might have been, yeah.
So you got 3 more games. That's hard, man. That's really hard.
Hey,
we hope that they'll do it, but hey,
if we go 14-0, then we made our run at them. But if we go 15-0, then we beat them, right? So,
yeah, that's not how it works.
So Rich Eisen at number 4. Rich Eisen had the Detroit Lions at number 4, and PFF had the Lions at 6. So PFF Lions at 6, Rich Eisen Lions at 4. So I'm going to take the Lions out of number 4. I don't believe that they belong there. I really don't. I think that they're better than the 4th best team in the NFL right now. And I'm going to go ahead and swap them. Yesterday I said with the Chiefs, and I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep that swap. So I'm going to back the Chiefs from what Rich Eisen has as the number 2 team right now. And I'm going to go ahead and slide the Chiefs in at number 4. And the reason why is clearly their offseason has not gone to plan. They've had a pretty rough offseason, with legal issues. That is a big distraction on the team that is trying to make it back. I don't have the confidence that, Rashee Rice is going to get his head out of his what. And he was a big contributor last season. He would be another big contributor this year. I don't even know if he's going to be able to play this year. I haven't followed enough to see what's coming down the line for him as far as punishment. So let's just say that he even does play. I just feel like he's a distraction. So I have the Lions leapfrogging the Chiefs, but I have the Chiefs as the number 4 team to win a Super Bowl. And here's what we got on the Chiefs. So the Kansas City Chiefs made several strategic moves in 2024. As we know, they've had a lot of issues, off the field already that have been a big distraction. But they drafted to strengthen their roster and improve their chances of winning a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. So here's kind of a look at what they did to get better. Obviously, Chris Jones is a big piece of this. The Chiefs locked down their star defensive tackle, Chris Jones, last year with a massive contract extension, ensuring that the defensive line remains formidable and, continuing the pressure, to the opposing quarterbacks is a big part of their game. And having that interior, exterior pressure, as we know, is going to be a big part of the Lions game this year. L'Jarius Sneed, they lost Sneed to the Titans. So that's a big loss, right? They're losing a big part of their defensive backfield. Drew Tranquill, they re-signed Drew Tranquill. He continues to add depth and stability to their linebacking core. Tranquill has proven to be an important player for the Chiefs defense. He tallied 79 tackles last season, 7 TFLs, 4.5 sacks, and forced 2 fumbles. So pretty big year for Drew Tranquill. In the draft, though, 1st round pick. Oh, wait a second here. I don't know why I have AD Mitchell. Who did the Chiefs take in the 1st round?
Xavier Worthy.
It wasn't it? It wasn't Adonai Mitchell.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so they took. Texans. Yeah, they took Xavier Worthy. So they used their 1st round pick on upgrading their offensive wide receiver core. He's expected to provide an immediate impact for a team that last year really struggled mightily with the receiving core. It was probably one of the weakest receiving cores in the NFL, and somehow they still put it together. My biggest question mark right now, And this is not an indictment on Travis Kelce. But my biggest question mark for the Chiefs this year is how well is Travis Kelce going to play because of the distractions that are in front of him? I think he managed well last year, but potentially a Taylor Swift baby bun in the oven. I mean, there's some big distractions here. There's going to be a lot of media issues, tons of media issues for him to kind of weave through. That is my biggest question mark. Is Travis Kelce going to be able to produce at a high enough level and manage all of these distractions, which, I mean, let's be honest here. Distractions infect the team, and it can infect an entire team. It can cause a divide in a locker room, with too much outside noise. I mean, I want to say that Andy Reid probably has a pretty good pulse on this, but at the same time, once it infects that locker room, you've already got the issues with Rashee Rice. What's going to happen with Travis Kelce? So that's why I'm dropping the Chiefs right now. But the overall impact of their offseason, they made a couple of moves. They lost a few guys that I believe are critical to this team. They are still well positioned to make a strong run, but I just feel like the air is going to get let out of the tires here, and they're gonna struggle at some point through this season, and it's just not going to be enough for them to make it back. And they may make it back to the playoffs, but then again, they're one of the teams that I feel might crash and burn and might be left on the outside looking in. I know that is a very bold statement to make in June. We'll see what happens in training camp. But I do believe the Chiefs might be one of those teams that just kind of falls apart. We've seen it happen in the past. So go ahead. You can you cut me up now because those are some bold statements.
There are some bold statements. The thing that I would say about Travis Kelce, it might even go the other way, because if you look at last year was his first time dealing with this type of distraction. You never knew how. Actually, you know what? The NFL might have had him in, up at what is the address? Was it 356 or 3 something?
I don't know what you're talking about.
The address for the NFL offices.
I have no idea.
I used to know what it was, but anyway, he might have been up there meeting with Goodell about, okay, look, Travis, this is how we're going to cover it, and Taylor will be sitting over here. We're gonna have this camera, this, so he might have been in on the whole thing anyway. Because I would say that he didn't understand how it was going to be covered, or but they might have briefed him. But so that being the first year that type of stuff was happening, it's possible that he'll be better at handling it this year. You know what I mean? I think the team as a whole, other than new guys, would be more used to it this year. So that's a possibility. But as far as all the other things that have been happening in their offseason, yeah, you never want to see multiple people getting in trouble with the law. Now, as far as Rashee Rice, I haven't seen anything about any potential punishment, and that's weird.
Yeah, that's really weird.
And I pretty much, I think both of us kind of follow the insiders and all these things. And I just haven't seen anything, which is just strange. But if he doesn't get suspended, I mean, he's got to get fined at least. I mean, leaving the scene of an accident and all these things. Just unwanted stuff. So I can see why you would drop them down to number 4. I also do not have them three-peating because of just the way that this stuff has started out. I think you were saying yesterday that from all that you've heard about Xavier Worthy, he's been a bust. I just keep saying he's following the footsteps of porn star Jimmy, dating strippers and things of that nature. And he's a rookie that probably needs to be focusing on other things.
So as far as an update on Rashee Rice, so there's a very long quote here by Adam Schefter, and this was back mid-May. He said that the league is certainly looking into it. And it certainly sounds like the Chiefs are bracing for a multi-game suspension of Rashee Rice. And it doesn't look like he's going to be part of the start of the season. That opening night game against the Baltimore Ravens, again, the personal conduct policy mandates certain discipline be in place no matter what. And the facts right now are such that they are against Rashee Rice, and we'll see what the investigation turns up. But there's certainly concern within the organization considering what has happened this offseason. Also considering that the alleged harassment last week, the latest involvement, considering the history that he had in college as well. There's a slew, which college doesn't matter. I don't know why Schefter even threw that in. There's a slew of incidents here that the league is sifting through. So you have the accident, you have the aggravated assault. There's, all sorts of things here that should stem to a suspension. If it's not a 4-game or a 6-game suspension, I would be extremely surprised. But at the same time, I think that would just show you even more that the NFL has their hand in trying to dictate who can, be a good team here in 2024. Like what's good for the NFL may not be good for the gander, right? I mean, if the Chiefs are not playing well, maybe the NFL is going to lose a few $billion. Well, they don't want that. So I think it all surrounds money. I don't feel like it's a very fair system at all. I think that, there should be a very significant level of trust within, how the NFL punishes players, because it's been all over the place. For instance, Jameson Williams, he got screwed last year. Yes, he shouldn't have done what he did, but then the NFL goes and changes everything, about 3.5 weeks into the season. And they're like, oh, by the way, you're only going to serve 4 games now. Or I think he served 5 games I can't remember, but he should have only served a 2-game suspension or something like that. And he ended up serving 4, I think was the way it went down. So he got screwed because they waited to make a change instead of dealing with it early enough in the season to, I think we made enough noise. I think that was the biggest thing, is a lot of us made enough noise about it. And the NFL was like, wait, maybe we need to look at this again. I think a lot of players came out and said, hey, we didn't know. Like this was glossed over. Like, thankfully we didn't get in trouble, but we didn't bet either. So had they bet, they wouldn't have known, and they all would have been in trouble. I mean, just stay away from it, I guess, is the lesson learned. Just keep your nose clean. But anyway, I don't think it's very fair with the way some of these punishments have gone down. To kind of finish on the Chiefs, and I'll get your thoughts when I'm done with this, is the Chiefs, they didn't lose Chris Jones. That was a big plus, right? They signed Travis Kelce to an extension. I don't know if he'll play the full extension out. Those are 2 offseason wins for them. They also brought in Marquise Brown, which I kind of forgot to mention. Marquise Brown is a big vertical threat. So not having, Rashee Rice, they still have Marquise Brown. They traded away cornerback L'Jarius Sneed, which obviously hurts big time. They have some very young cornerback depth to help mitigate that, but they're not L'Jarius Sneed. They also lost Willie Gay, which is another big contributor out of the middle of that defense. So there's some issues here for them, on field, off field, off season. We'll see what happens.
Didn't Willie Gay miss the Super Bowl, or he missed the AFC Championship game? Because I know he had a back injury, I believe it was. So there was one of those games that he didn't play in.
I'm not real sure.
Yeah,
not real sure.
But I just want to say, what I forgot about the assault with Rashee Rice. So, but you know what Marquise Brown also cannot do?
Let's
catch.
Well,
so, I mean, you change Marquez Valdez-Scantling for Marquise Brown. I don't think he. I know he's a downfield threat, but so was Valdez-Scantling, and I don't know if he'll drop the ball as much. So obviously there's some games. I think there was the Packers game, which was clear pass interference. Valdez-Scantling was interfered with, and the refs for some reason didn't call it. But maybe Brown doesn't cost you 2 games, so maybe you get 1 extra game without the drops from there. But yeah.
All right.
I don't think he makes them better.
Brent, we're getting to the Lions actually next. So Are you good with the Chiefs being backed up to number 4? Where do you see the Chiefs in the top 10?
I mean, when you put it that way, yes, I'm good with them being backed up at the top 4 just because of all of the turmoil that's going around them. I mean, we were talking about it yesterday with Patrick Mahomes being able to take that merry band of men that he had as receivers and actually win a Super Bowl with him. And it's not just Patrick Mahomes, it's Andy Reid. Andy Reid he would have done this with the Eagles if he had someone like Patrick Mahomes instead of Donovan McNabb. So it's the Andy Reid effect, Patrick Mahomes effect, put those things together, and it was just they were able to do it. But with all of the distractions, I was going to make a joke about Rashee Rice and his suspension, but you took it, so I couldn't.
So here, I mean, here's where I'm at with coaching, and I think that you kind of bring up a very valid point here. You're talking about Andy Reid and what he could have done with the Eagles. Let's just be honest. You put Andy Reid with the Eagles of the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Oh yeah,
they're going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
without a doubt. Coaching makes a huge difference. You can have all of the best players in the league on the team. You can have an all-pro team. If you do not have adequate coaching and a pulse, on your team and have built good character and a team that, listens as much as, as they should, right? Listens to their coaching staff. It's hard to win in the NFL. It's really hard to win. I think a lot of it boils down to coaching, and that's why, you've seen Dan Campbell get lit up after some games for some of the decisions that he made. He's learned throughout his tenure in Detroit, but at the same time, I feel like he has a very good pulse on his team. He has a big amount of respect from his players, and it goes both ways. And I think that is probably the most important aspect of a coach, is being respected. And Dan Campbell is highly respected. And I feel like your players are going to want to play differently for you. They're going to give you that extra, even when they don't have it in the tank to give. But then being intelligent, right? And knowing the game, being a student of the game, being the Lions are doing it right. But I think that Andy Reid is also that individual that can change a team because of his intelligence and the respect that he garners from his players. So I do believe coaching is big. Shout out to Braylon Dennis, $2 super chat, says, I have the Niners at 3, Ravens at 2, and the Lions at number 1. Brent, before you go, we've got the Lions here. So let me get the Lions in. At number 3, I have the Lions taking place of what would have been the Ravens. So let's talk about the Lions for just a moment here. The Detroit Lions have made several impactful moves during the 2024 offseason, as we know, and the draft was huge to improve this team. Here's my comprehensive look at what the Detroit Lions did this offseason and why they should be positioned here as the 3rd best team in the NFL. Number 1, they brought in defensive end Marcus Davenport. Now, I know that there's mixed reviews here on Marcus Davenport. He's kind of been injured, banged up throughout the last couple of seasons. But if the Lions can get the Marcus Davenport of 2021 back, they have a very secure defensive end here that can help this team win. He definitely adds depth and experience to the pass rush alongside of or opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. Although Davenport has had injury issues, his potential impact when healthy is significant. He's a big guy. He knows the game. When he plays hard. It's just, he's got to be in the game. And I think that's the biggest detractor for a lot of Lions fans is the injury effect. And Brad Holmes bringing in these guys that seem to have injuries consistently. And that makes us worry because as Lions fans for decades, we've always failed with injured players, always, without a doubt. But then we back that up by bringing in Kevin Zeitler. So the Lions lost Jonah Jackson, which I was not afraid of this loss. I predicted it. I expected it. I did not think that the Lions were going to overpay Jonah Jackson for his services. And then they brought in a guy that's better. They filled in the gap left by Jonah by bringing in Kevin Zeitler. Despite his age, Zeitler is expected to bring stability and experience to the offensive line. He was rated as one of the top guards in the NFL last year for the Ravens. Perfect, match here for the Lions to bring in somebody that can give the Lions that extra that we do need at the right guard position. They followed that up by also re-signing Graham Glasgow. Now, this one was big for me, very big for me. I wanted Graham back. Not only did he play better than Jonah Jackson, grade-wise on PFF, but retaining Graham Glasgow also helps to give this Lions offense continuity along the offensive line. It also strengthens the offensive line by giving the Lions someone that can play multiple positions. Last year, he played right guard, left guard, center, did it all swimmingly. When he filled in at center, he probably played better than average. It's not Frank Ragnow at center, but he can do it. And that makes me feel better that knowing that Frank has issues and injuries that kind of creep up throughout the season, we have a guy that can slide in now. So big time moves by the Lions, re-signing Graham Glasgow, bringing in Kevin Zeitler. I will say that this offensive line is better than it was in 2023, and that's pretty scary. To match up with Marcus Davenport, the Lions brought in the number one free agent, DJ Reader. In my opinion, this was the biggest move for the Lions here in the offseason free agency period. Obviously, DJ Reader aims to maintain and enhance the Lions' already very strong run defense, putting him next to Aleem McNeil. We know that Reader is known for his ability to stop the run, consistently taking on double teams. He'll be crucial for the Lions' defensive front. He just has to get on the field. I know that there's some worry right now that he may not even be ready for week 1. And if that's the case, it is what it is. I think that when he is in, we are going to see a brand new defense. He is going to add so much power to that defensive line that getting an interior pass rush, I think, is finally going to wake up Lions fans to just how good Aiden Hutchinson can be by now finally having an interior pass rush that can take the pressure away from Aiden, and Aiden's going to be able to work. So those are the 4 biggest moves in free agency outside of Meek Robertson and Carlton Davis. Now, I wasn't extremely high on Carlton Davis in the beginning because of the injuries, his lack of time on the field, missing more than 23% of the available games since he's been in the NFL. But when you look at it, and you look at what he's been able to do when he's on the field, Carlton Davis has been a fairly locked down corner on the left side of the defense. Him to step in with Meek Robertson, who's an absolute bulldog. He's not afraid to match up against anybody. He can play interior in the slot. He can also play outside. And Carlton Davis, he can play either left or right side, but he's more comfortable on the left side of the defense. Those were big moves with the Lions obviously shedding the dead weight, which was Jerry Jacobs and Will Harris and others that just didn't stack up. The loss of Cam Sutton to his legal issues. But none of those players really had a great season last year. So the Lions are starting brand new on this defense. They've added some significant free agents. And then draft strategy was big. Before I get into the draft strategy, what do you want to say about the free agent acquisitions?
No, that was one thing. It's a good point. I had forgotten about Carlton Davis's injury history. And that makes me think that everybody is going to play. So Ennis Rakestraw, I believe, is going to be getting an opportunity here. Now, hopefully Carlton Davis stays on the field, but if he's not able to, obviously we have Terrion Arnold, who would probably slide over, and then some mixture of Amik Robertson and Ennis Rakestraw filling in for them. So that was just one thing that I wanted to bring up that, you brought to my attention with the Carlton Davis injury situation.
Well, I think that you just kind of hit the nail on the head there. I mean, Ennis Rakestraw is going to be able to get more playing time than I think what we expected. He's going to battle it out in camp. Brad Holmes has considered this camp to be a bloodbath in the back end of this defense, and it's going to be. We have high-level competition for the first time in Dan Campbell's regime and Brad Holmes' regime that we now have players that are competing in the backside of the defense. Yeah, you could say they were competing before. But this is different. Like, we've got actual competitors where we have 4 or 5 guys that could all turn out to be a number 1 corner. Like, when's the last time that we've really had this much competition on the back end of the defense? I can't remember a year. Even in 2014, I think that, the players are pretty much set. I don't think that we really had an overabundance of competition in that back end of the defense. So this year, I mean, between Ennis Rakestraw, Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, I mean, all four of those guys legit could be a number one corner in the NFL on one of the 32 NFL teams if they come in and play at their highest potential. That, I think, is the biggest thing that we're waiting to see. Like, who's going to really be able to come in and play at their highest potential? Is Ennis Rakestraw going to be able to bend that learning curve, and make it a little bit of a shorter trajectory to be able to get on the field? But to your point about backing up Carlton Davis, if Carlton Davis does go down, I think that I feel more comfortable this year with the amount of depth that we now have than I have in years past. Like, I am totally comfortable now knowing that we've got some guys that can come in. Carlton goes down, Terrion fills in. If Amik Robertson goes down, Ennis Rakestraw fills in. Totally solid. I think that we're good. I don't really want to have two rookies on the field at the same time, but we still have Brian Branch from last season, stellar performer, someone that can step in and play any position, and I think our safeties are solid. And then you've got Sion Vaki. He's a playmaker. You call him whatever you want to call him, but he's a playmaker, and you cannot keep him off the field. So we'll see what happens, as the season progresses. But man, this is shaping up to be probably one of the most electric off seasons and training camps that we're going to be a part of here in the last 3-4 years.
Shout out Jahmyr Gibbs.
So moving on with the draft. So as we know, the Lions selected Terrion Arnold at 24. Quite honestly, there was a lot of conversation between him and Quinion Mitchell. Who's the best? Who's number one? I had Terrion Arnold as my number one corner in this draft. I did love Kool-Aid McKinstry. I had just never thought that the Lions were going to have a shot at Terrion Arnold. And the Lions brought in Terrion Arnold at the very end of, what was 30, top 30 visits. So they must have caught wind of something, because they brought him in, towards the very end, of leading up to the draft. And what do you know? It ends up falling into our lap that the Lions end up with Terrion Arnold in what was a very weird draft with 13 or 14 of the first picks being on the offensive side of the ball. So
13.
You end up with Terrion Arnold at 24. They back it up, double down on a position of need by taking Ennis Rakestraw at 61 in round 2. And then, of course, with Giovanni Manu, Sion Vaki, Christian Mahogany, and others. I mean, Mekhi Wingo. The Lions really did an excellent job at making this draft work for them. We kind of had some limited picks this year in the trades that Brad Holmes made. I think that he did an excellent job at doing everything possible to make sure that we got the best player possible that also fit the team's needs. So the draft obviously hit it out the park. I think that we've got great depth. And then the extensions. The Lions locked up Jared Goff for the next, 5 seasons. And then they locked up Penei Sewell, clearly the number one right tackle, potentially the number one left tackle in the league. And when he gets a shot, I think he is going to move to left tackle at some point. They still haven't, re-signed Ali McNeil, but then Amon-Ra St. Brown, top 5 wide receiver in the league since 2022. Man, when you watch his film, there's just nobody like him right now in the NFL that does what he does at the high level that he does it. And super excited to see now 3 staples on this team locked down for the future. So that's why I have the Lions at the number 3 spot. 3rd best overall chances and team right now in June before training camp or before the season kicks off to win the Super Bowl. Overall outlook, look, with the strategic moves that the Lions made, coaching staff is the same, right? No let off in coaching staff. We got better on the defensive line with Terrell Williams. They made some moves. They got rid of Dre Bly and forgive me, I forget, who did we bring in cornerback?
Deshea Townsend.
That's right. So the Lions are well positioned to build off the success they had in 2023 and prove to everybody in 2024 it was not a fluke. Where they finished at 12-5, the best record the Lions have had, and make it all the way to the NFC Championship game where they clearly had the game won. They just had to shut the door and they let it open just a little too long. But they addressed key needs through both free agency and the draft. The Lions have fortified their roster for the future, and have added some significant depth needed to make a Super Bowl run. That was a mouthful. What do you got to say on the Lions here?
I'm gonna make Braylon Dennis happy here. I'm gonna make him slightly happier than he is right now, because obviously he said you putting him at number 3 is an L take. So I'm gonna have a lowercase L take, and I'm gonna put them at number 2.
Okay.
I'm gonna put them over the San Francisco 49ers. Generally, I don't do that. Just it's the same reason why I won't put them over the Baltimore Ravens, but it was a different kind of loss to the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens just completely outclassed us, and they laid the smacketh down upon us. So I will not put them above the Baltimore Ravens, but I will say, because of some of the issues that they have within the organization of the San Francisco 49ers, we talked about distractions, and that moved down the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, these are not the types of distractions. These are not legal troubles and police issues and all these things. But there are 2 wide receivers on their football team that were staples of their offense who now have some issues. Brandon Ayuk, we don't know if he's going to be there. We don't know if he's going to get traded. He's very unhappy. He wants a new deal. And Deebo Samuel, he can downplay it all he wants, but they apparently tried to trade him during the draft. He talked about it. It was discussed. He said he's good with the 49ers, yada, yada, yada. Told the company man line like he had to, but that's going to hurt one's pride when you're trying to move on from me. So there could be a few hiccups. There could be some discord within the ranks of the 49ers. So because of that, I'm going to put the Lions at number 2.
Okay. Want to expand upon that as far as, any of the offseason moves or anything that, that they have done?
The offense, well, the moves that they made, I mean, you covered them. They're very stellar moves. Obviously, we're looking for DJ Reader to come in and just create havoc on the defense. What was it? Destruction and Danger, which is the nickname for DJ Reader and Ali McNeil. The cornerback room. If we go from Jerry Jacobs, now I'm not one of the people that was too down on Jerry Jacobs, because I looked at where Jerry Jacobs came from. He was an undrafted free agent, and he was put in a position where he shouldn't have been put in. Generally, you don't look for an undrafted free agent or a 7th round cornerback to be your starter, and that's pretty much what he was doing. So I cut him a little slack. Now, someone like Cam Sutton, again, because of the circumstances of how he left and what he did, I still cut him slack for the back half of the season because he was dealing with a turf toe injury. He wasn't good. He was not. So everything that we've done has been upgraded from those types of guys. And again, we're not going to be, I think Brad Holmes did everything in his power. And this is why he doubled up on the cornerback position in the draft. And this is why he went out and signed 2 free agent cornerbacks, because I think he's trying to do everything in his power to say that we're not going to have guys like Kendall Vildor and Jerry Jacobs and guys of that ilk playing meaningful snaps in NFC championship games or Super Bowls again. Now, what I also think about the secondary is the fact that we have an embarrassment of riches right now, and we have to figure out how to get certain people on the field. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of creativity. And that is going to start from the pass rush to the secondary. I do think, and this is what I would do personally, I do think that we may see some formations where James Houston is a stand-up rusher and Aiden Hutchinson is on the same side as him. if you put that against a quarterback, good luck to whoever that quarterback is. If you're not mobile, you're not getting away from that. So I think we can see things like that, with everyone else down on the line, Hutchinson, Reeder, McNeil, Davenport. Again, we talked about Davenport's history of injuries. I am not a believer in his injury history. I've been on record as saying that I'm a believer in his ability to play the game, but his injury history just scares me, especially the last season where he had 5 offseason surgeries. Now, I know there were like hand and shoulder surgeries, which you wouldn't think is a huge deal, but I mean, he does use his hands and shoulders a lot. So that's probably why those things were operated on. So 5 surgeries on any couple of body parts is kind of major. So that just scares the mess out of me. But again, I think this defense was clearly the focus. And the Kevin Zeitler signing, Kevin Zeitler, I believe, was born. He came out of the womb to be a Brad Campbell. Yes, Brad and Dan. He came out of the womb to be a Brad Campbell Lion. If you saw when we were signing him, his wife was in labor and he was doing pass set reps in the hospital.
That's
his
funny,
wife was in
isn't it?
labor.
It's
Okay,
hilarious.
so he eats, sleeps, drinks, and breathes football. We already know. So he is the perfect Detroit Lion of this regime. So I think Brad Holmes did a stellar job with all the people that he brought in. Also, Jonas Jackson, I was like, don't let the door hit you. He just, again, his injuries and his price tag wasn't worth the juice, wasn't worth the squeeze, as they
That's
say.
right. Yeah.
So for those reasons, and as you said, again, the extensions, it's just been so harmonious within the Lions organization. We haven't had any issues come out. We haven't, there's just no sour grapes, nobody pouting, nobody doing any of those things. So much kumbaya, peace and love around Jameson Williams, and just Terrion Arnold just infusing this team with so much panache. Can I say panache? Is that the right word?
Panache.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'm a chef.
Panache and
Okay.
pejoratives today.
Listen, I have to use French words sometimes. Like je ne sais quoi the other day.
Je ne sais
But
quoi.
he's just got that it factor, man. So it just, all positives pretty much have been surrounding the Lions, unless you're talking about maybe someone struggling in camp or something like of this nature. But as far as the cultural element of it, and the nuclear team element of it, it's just been all positives. We haven't had any distractions. We haven't had any contract disputes. We haven't had any of those things. So I think that we are kind of one of the most intact teams as far as those top 5. Haven't heard anything. Well, there was the thing with the Ravens where Lamar is missing. He's already missed enough practices to not get some roster bonuses or something like that.
Yeah, he's lost
But
almost $1 million or something already.
yeah, but I mean,
I don't know why he's out though. I don't know why he's out. I don't think he's holding out or anything like that. But so to defend myself here and why I have them at number 3. I mean, I think we have to take in a couple of things to consideration here. The Niners beat the Lions. The Ravens handily beat the Lions, and both of those teams, I believe, got better in the offseason compared to where they were last year. Now there's some notable departures on both the Niners and the Ravens, but that's probably the only reason why I have, those two teams ahead of the Lions right now.
Right.
And when I look at, all of the other sites, whether it's PFF or CBS or Rich Eisen or whomever, nobody has the Lions higher than 4 or 5. I think even one had them potentially up there at 3. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought I saw him at 3 somewhere before.
But I think that, this is June, right? When we get through training camp and the dust settles and we kind of see what we have. Now, I'm not saying that the Lions can't win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that they can't beat the Niners or the Chiefs or the Ravens or any of these teams or the Texans. But being realistic and evaluating where the team was, where the team is, where it's going, we still have some questions unanswered about the Lions, namely DJ Reader, Carlton Davis, Marcus Davenport. As much as I love those three signings, and I feel like it's going to help the Lions, we have three very big injury concerns with all of them. One, DJ Reader's not even on the field yet, so we don't know his impact. We don't know what it's going to be this year. The Lions might be looking at this just like Dan Campbell said. I expected this to happen. We expected this to happen. Maybe we don't get him back till week 5 or 6. Now, I don't think Dan Campbell said that yet, but if that doesn't come to fruition to where he doesn't hit the field week 1, I'm not going to be upset about it, but I think that we have to temper our expectations a little bit. They have a 2-year deal on this guy for a reason. I would hope that they don't think he's going to be shelved for a long period of 2024, but what happens if he is? What if he misses half a season? If as long as he can, play the rest of the season and stay healthy and have a big impact, we don't lose too many games in the first half of the season, I'm cool with that. But I think that we still have to temper our expectations, and injuries can happen with anybody, any team, and at any time. I mean, it's the NFL. But I think that I'm still going to be just a little bit reserved here until I see training camp and how these guys perform. And what our second tier guy is going to look like in preseason. That, to me, is going to tell me how good is our depth. But I understand Braylon, too. I mean, he's all Lions all the time, just like all grit all the time. But I have to be realistic with it, too. And I don't think that I would be doing Lions fans any service by saying that we are number 1, we should win the Super Bowl, it's a lock, because I think that would be false. I think that we have more work to do. I really do. Now, I've predicted last year that 2024 would be the year that the Lions should be able to win the Super Bowl because we still needed one more draft. I'm glad that I made that prediction. I'm glad that I felt that we were half a draft away or half a season away, and we needed another draft to get better because, man, did we get better. And we really addressed some very significant holes on this defense. Every year we get better. And I think that's the one feather you can stick in your hat, is that we're going to continue to get better year after year. And that is a mark of a good team. Before I get on to, what would be the next two, Niners and Ravens, any last words on the Lions?
No, I agree with everything that you said. Again, when we said that the 49ers beat the Lions, this is true, but it just wasn't. I'm not convinced, man. I'm not convinced that the 49ers are a better team off of that loss. The way that it went down, I'm just not convinced. But I can't completely disagree with what you're saying. I understand your logic completely. But I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with the Lions at number 2. Now, what I would
where
say,
do you have the Niners then? You have the Niners at number 3?
yeah, I would have them number 3. But what I would say is it's probably a coin flip. If you said if you told me that the Lions were number 2 and the 49ers were number 3, I wouldn't argue with you. And if you said that the Lions were number 3 and the 49ers were number 2, again, I wouldn't argue with you. I think it's just a coin flip in any given Sunday. Well, not even really in any given Sunday. Because that just implies that anybody can beat anybody. But I feel like there's not a huge difference between the teams.
I mean, here's what I will rest my case on is we got beat in the second half because we didn't have the personnel to play outside of the scheme. Now, I know, but Dan Campbell kind of alluded to it the other day when he said, there's the scheme, there's the play, but then there's the play within the play. You have to be able to identify the situation. So I know that I'm here to do X, Y, and Z on this play because of that player on the other side of the field. Wait a second, that player's not in. So now I need to act differently, right? I need to perform according to what's happening now in the game. And I know it's a long way to say what he said, but he essentially was trying to say that, let's just use Kirby Joseph as an example. If Kirby Joseph had to, back up Carlton Davis on Brandon Ayuk, and now Brandon Ayuk is not in the game for whatever reason on that play. Well, now he doesn't have to back up Carlton Davis. Now he needs to go and do something different, but he has to be able to identify that and not get locked in to just following his marching order. He needs to be able to recognize that there's a different opportunity now on the field without being told, because the team, the coaches, they're not going to be able to tell you everything at every situation of the moment of the game. You have to recognize it. You have to be a chameleon back there or anywhere on the defense or the offense. You have to be a chameleon. You have to recognize there's a different opportunity in front of you. You play within the scheme, but you also have to recognize that there's a different way to play within the scheme. Is the best way I can say it. So, and I think that that's what got us in that game, is that they just didn't recognize, what they should have been doing. And I think that there was a lot of faults in that game, and we've talked about it till we're blue in the face, but I think there's a lot of things that went wrong. So let's get to number 2 on my list. Now, number 2 on Rich Eisen's list was the Chiefs. Now, I obviously booted the Chiefs back to number 4. And I had the Lions at number 3, and Rich Eisen had the Ravens at number 3, but I put the Niners at number 2. And let's talk about their moves here in the offseason. So San Francisco 49ers also made some big time moves in the 2024 offseason, which are expected to enhance their performance and address some key areas of need as well. Here's kind of a look at some of their changes here in 2024. The Lions signed veteran pass rusher Leonard Floyd to a 2-year deal worth up to $24 million. Floyd has consistently recorded at least 9 sacks per season over the past 4 years, making him a very valuable asset opposite of Nick Bosa. Another important acquisition was Yerder Gross-Matos, who joined on a 2-year, $18 million contract. Gross-Matos will further strengthen the defensive line. And then to also bolster the interior portion of the 49ers defense, they added former Browns defensive tackle Jordan Elliott on a 2-year deal. So Elliott's experience with a similar defensive scheme makes this a very fitting addition to the 49ers. They didn't stop there. San Francisco addressed their secondary needs by signing Isaac Edom, former Saints, and also Chase Lucas from the Detroit Lions, which I don't think that Chase Lucas is going to give them a whole bunch of value, but both players were expected to enhance the cornerback depth. They continued from there, though, to compensate for the injury to Dre Greenlaw. The 49ers signed Devondre Campbell on a 1-year deal. Campbell's experience, obviously, and his versatility will be critical for the linebacking core here in 2024. And then they also added Josh Dobbs as a backup quarterback. Man, is he making the rounds around the NFL. So when you look at that list, that's why I can't discount the 49ers. They got, in my opinion, they got better in the offseason, which is tough to do on a very loaded team. But they got better, or at least lateral moves where they didn't get worse. Notable departures, though. They lost Sam Darnold. I don't think that's a big deal. Ray McLeod, wide receiver. Eric Armstead was probably their biggest departure. He was released and signed on a 3-year deal to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which obviously created that need on the defensive line. And I think that's why they kind of went heavy on finding, some additions here in the offseason. They did sign a few players to extensions or returned players. Brandon Allen came back, was re-signed to continue on as a veteran presence behind Brock Purdy. Kevin Givens, nose tackle, re-signed on a 1-year deal. And Jawan Jennings, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. It's Jauan, Jawan Jennings. Jennings received the 2nd round tender And then that secured his place on the team unless another team offers the 49ers a second round pick. Now we get to the draft, and they got better still. They added Ricky Pearsall in the first round. This guy is electric on the field. I think that he's going to add some big time value to this team. Renardo Green, cornerback, one of my favorite cornerbacks coming into this draft this year. Would have loved to have seen him as an addition to the Lions had they not found Ennis Rakestraw. But Renardo Green, Dominic Pooney, one of my favorite offensive linemen in this draft, another Polynesian. Love what he's able to do. Malik Mustafa, one of my favorite safeties in this draft. So they got better and they added some really solid depth. My overall analysis on the 49ers, offseason moves have definitely focused on bolstering their defense, adding experience and production to the defensive line, linebacker unit, and the secondary. They addressed key departures and reinforced depth across the roster. San Francisco has positioned itself to be stronger in 2024 as a contender for the Super Bowl. Making their way back to the NFC title game is boom or bust for them. That's their only option this year. They may match up again with the Lions here in 2024. We'll see. But we get a crack at the 49ers in the regular season. So we do get to go back and hopefully get a win this time. It's going to be a tough game, but I think that is the game that we're all looking forward to next to the Cowboys. Those are the two games that we want to win this year. So thoughts on 49ers?
I think we'll get to see, unfortunately, the 49ers. What is it, week? So it's somewhere late in the season, which was something I didn't really want to see because it's too close to the playoffs. But one big thing that I will say that the 49ers did get better in was that they brought in Leonard Floyd, and he is going to be replacing Chase Young. I think Leonard Floyd is much more productive. And I think he's much more worrisome than Chase Young to me anyway. So I would say that, what was that guy's name? Gross Matos?
Gross Yurto. Hold on, is butchered it. Hold on. Let me go back.
Gross Matos.
Yurto Gross Matos. Look, he's not like I like Gross Matos. He's pretty damn good.
Okay. Who did he play with before?
Good question.
Because I would be lying to you if I said I ever heard of him. I just never heard of him.
Was he a Panther?
If that might be why.
Hold on a second here. 2023 had 4.5 sacks, got in 12 games. He was a Panther. He was a Panther since he was a rookie. So he was coming off of his rookie deal. Must have been a second or third round pick or something like that. But he's been pretty solid. I mean, nothing crazy, but pretty solid over his career. So 2020, 2.5 sacks, 21, 3.5, 22, 2.5, 23, 4.5. He's, averages a few TFLs. Last year he had 7, 10 quarterback hits. Overall, he's a pretty solid player. I think that he has more upside, obviously being on the Panthers. I mean, not the greatest of opportunity to explore, who he really could be. So I think being with the 49ers, you're going to see a different Yurto Gross Matos. He's got more upside ability. I was excited to see him become available. Obviously, the Lions were not, so they did not go after him.
Right. The only thing that I can ask about their defensive additions is, did they get better against the run? Because we absolutely gashed them with the run in the first half. And I think one of the reasons that we weren't able to gash them in the second half was because we just inexplicably had struggles the entire year coming out in the third quarter. If we were able to continue to establish the run, I mean, nothing that we do in the third quarter works. I don't know what it is. It's like the Bermuda Triangle. Wherever we, throw out offensive plays in the third quarter, they just crash and burn. But Had we been able to reestablish the run coming out of halftime, I don't think that we lose that game.
Yeah, third quarter, for whatever reason, offensively was a complete letdown almost all season long, and defensively for the Lions. They've got to fix that. That is, in my opinion, right now, that is probably the most important fix this season. How do you fix the third quarter? Because that opening possession, whether it's defense or offense, sets the tone for the rest of the game.
There's a stat. It's a really obscure stat, but it made a lot of sense. I think it's something like EPA, which is it's EP something. I feel like it's EPA, expected points. I know the first one is the first two are expected points, but anyway, our expected points were -76.
What, in the third quarter?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and I think the highest, we should say the worst was the Denver Broncos. I think they were like -112 or something like that. But yeah.
What, you said EPA, and this is just the third quarter?
Yes, I think it's EPA, EP something. But I did a video on it a long time ago. I think it was EPA.
Hold on here. So EPA.
Yeah, not the Environmental Protection Agency.
Yeah, no. So I'm trying to find it real quick here. But it's going to be an advanced stat somewhere. I just don't know where. I remember hearing a little bit about EPA, but if I were to take a shot at it, it would probably mean that in the third quarter, this is what you're expected to produce, whether it's negative or positive. Obviously, if it's positive, you're scoring more than the opponent in the third quarter. If it's negative, your opponent is scoring more in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And so we had negative 76 points in the third quarter, which means the entire season, we scored 76 points less than the opponent. The entire season, because that's obviously not a quarter average. That would be a ton of points in the third quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move on. The last team, the Ravens. Now, I know a lot of people probably have problems with this, but if we were to look back at, again, the analysis that other people have done, where have the Ravens lined up here as one of the contenders for 2024? And I think that a lot of analysis and analysts have the Ravens very high because of one simple addition to their team. Just one. I mean, I don't care what the rest of them did, but you had Derrick Henry to that backfield. That has got to be extremely scary for anybody having to play the Ravens at least twice a year. But now imagine having Derrick Henry out as the lead blocker for Lamar Jackson, or whoever they have back there. But PFF had the Ravens as the 5th overall, and Rich Eisen had them as the 3rd team overall. I have them as number 1, and quite simply, here's why. The Baltimore Ravens, they made several strategic moves, just like everybody else did. Let me get to it here. But they were very active in 2024. They made several significant moves to strengthen their roster for the upcoming season. And here again is the detailed breakdown of what I think makes them the number 1 team contender right now for 2024. Derrick Henry. I mean, this is the guy that, he's getting a little older, right? He may be losing a little bit in the gas tank. But the Ravens signed this, all-star running back to a 2-year deal. Henry's powerful running style will provide a significant boost to the Ravens' ground game, but not just their ground game. I mean, whenever he's back there, you have to account for Derrick Henry, and you also have to account for Lamar Jackson. If one of them is running the ball, it's going to be very difficult to defend. And there's this play that if you go back and watch the Ravens game that Lamar Jackson kept on using that beat the Lions down over down over down. And I don't know the exact play, but what it looks like is he's going to run the ball. He starts to move out to the right. And then he does this like stutter jump stop pass and gets the ball over top of the cornerback into either the tight end or a trailing running back from the opposite side of the field. And it goes for like 20, 30 yards every time. And if you watch that game against the Lions, you'll see it used over and over and over. And the reason why is you have to account for Lamar Jackson running the ball. So when you overcommit all of your resources down on Lamar Jackson, everyone's wide open over top, and he just kept plucking us every single time. But now you have to worry about Derrick Henry. So I think that that's an incredible addition to this team. The biggest re-addition or re-signing was Justin Madubuike. So Madubuike signed a 4-year, $98 million contract. He was the guy that I wanted the Lions to sign, and Christian Wilkinson. Those are my two top defensive tackles for the Lions to target. They just weren't going to spend $130 million on a guy that they haven't groomed, right? I think that's what we're learning about Brad Holmes is they're not going to go out and spend big time money on guys that they haven't brought in. They want to homegrown develop their guys. That's what the Lions have done now since 2021. That's what they're going to continue to do. So I'm not mad at it. But man, Justin Madubuike is an incredible piece to this defense. He's ensuring that this defensive line stays intact for the foreseeable future. They also re-signed a couple of linebackers, Malik Harrison and Brent Urban, adding depth and experience to the linebacking core. Quarterback Josh Johnson also re-signed on a 1-year deal. They did lose Ronald Darby, though, which was a pretty significant cornerback for the Ravens last season. They also lost Gus Edwards, Devin Duvernay, and Patrick Queen, one of the better linebackers in the NFL, who joined the Pittsburgh Steelers. So those departures were notable, in my opinion. Other transactions for the Ravens, they released Tyus Bowser for cap space purposes, and offensive lineman Ronnie Stanley. But he also restructured his contract, providing the team with more financial flexibility moving forward. So he did come back. The Baltimore Ravens made several impactful selections in 24. Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. Now, I was not high on Nate Wiggins. I do like his ability. I like some of his tape, but I just thought he was a little bit small. Thought he was a little bit too light. He's definitely going to have to add some weight, but they selected him in the first round, 30th overall. He obviously brings elite speed and coverage skills to the Ravens secondary. He's known highly for his recovery speed and playmaking ability. They also added offensive tackle Roger Rosengarten, taken in the second round, 62nd overall. Rosengarten is a promising offensive tackle. I can't tell you that I know anything about this guy because I don't. One of the better edge rushers in this draft was Adisa Isaac, and they nabbed him in the third round. I'm very surprised that Adisa slipped to the third round. I think that you're going to see a surprise out of Isaac. I think that he's going to prove everybody wrong. He might end up being better than Chop Robinson. We'll see. But I think that he got overshadowed by Chop Robinson, and that's a mistake. I think that Adisa Isaac is going to be a staple in the NFL for the next 10 years. Bold prediction, but there it is. They also added one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft, Devontae Walker out of North Carolina. He is going to be a huge addition for Lamar Jackson, downfield threat. And then, fourth round pick. I can't believe that TJ Tampa slipped all the way to the fourth round. A very promising cornerback coming out of this draft. And later in the fifth round, they added Rasheen Ali. I don't know anything about this running back out of Marshall. According to the news and notes here, he's a dynamic running back with impressive rushing stats. They continued in the sixth round by adding a quarterback, Devin Leary, as a backup to Lamar Jackson. Center out of Michigan State, Nick Samick, and safety out of Purdue, Sanusi Kane. So the Ravens definitely added some depth and some pretty impressive players in the first first 5 picks. I'm sorry. I don't know anything about Roger Rosengarten, but Nate Wiggins, Adisa Isaac, Devontae Walker, and TJ Tampa. I mean, those 4 picks are incredible for the Ravens. That clearly is going to give them an edge this season. The Ravens definitely focused on retaining key defensive players while adding significant firepower to the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. The acquisition of Derrick Henry is going to prove to be the best overall addition for them this season. The departure of several veterans will require the team to obviously have to integrate new talent quickly, and they did. I have them winning the AFC North Division. I have them being very competitive in the playoffs this year. What say you on the Ravens, and where would you put the Ravens in the top 10?
So there's this term that I like to use for the Ravens. It's a cheat code. So if you ever played flag football, you know how they had to put the rule in where you can't just like have everybody go out on like deep routes and then the quarterback just pulls it down and starts running with it.
Mm-hmm.
When you were describing that play that Lamar Jackson beat the Lions with over and over again, and I was remembering that play, that's the kind of the first thing that popped in my head. Now he wasn't pulling it down and running with it, but he was throwing it because you thought he was going to run with it. Losing Gus Edwards does not matter because they have Derrick Henry. And I feel like there are a few things that the Baltimore Ravens know. The Baltimore Ravens know secondary. They know defensive line. They know running backs. And they added depth and they got better in all of those aspects from the draft and free agency. And I believe that if you had reservations about Nate Wiggins, seeing that the Baltimore Ravens drafted him in the first round tells you all you need to know. He is a little bit small, but I do think he's going to be a dog. Sometimes people just have those body types where they're just thin. Now he did deal with an injury where didn't he like snap his hamstring or something like that in the combine?
I think that he did do something which it may have prevented him from running the 40, or he did it just after running the 40.
Yeah, he did it while he was running the 40 because he ran a 4.28.
Yeah, I think he's fine now, though. I think he's okay now.
So, I mean, if he doesn't have the injury concerns because of his slight frame, I think Nate Wiggins was a guy that I was pretty high on just watching his tape. But again, yes, the small thing. If he puts on a little 5 pounds of muscle, put some meat on those skinny bones, I would say he's going to be fine in the NFL. The thing about the reason why people put the Ravens lower than number 1 is there's this thing called playoff Lamar. And I think it's just it's a narrative that, yes, at times he's played poorly. Yes, at times he's been hurt. But the first few times that he was in the playoffs, he didn't have receivers. That was the whole thing. And then I believe last year it was more so it wasn't a great game. Todd Monken didn't call a great game. He forgot about the running game when he went up against the Chiefs for some reason. I think he called like 6 running plays or something like that. But they were still in it. And Lamar Jackson is not the one that fumbled that football into the end zone. That was Zay Flowers when they were going to go in and tie the game. So that is the only reason I believe that people kind of downgrade the Ravens. But I think now that they have this kind of more complete team and they're starting to give Lamar weapons outside of Mark Andrews, like real weapons, even when you look at his running backs that he had, who were these people? Like who was Gus Edwards before we knew of him with Lamar? Like now that he has a freaking, didn't Derrick Henry have like 1,300 yards last season?
I don't remember what his stats were, but I'm sure that they weren't terrible. The one thing that I'll say about Lamar that we did not expect last year is for him to develop into more of a pocket passer. Like Lamar has been known as a running back.
Yeah.
And I've been on record many times, you know, um, saying that this whole Lamar Jackson thing to Detroit when that came out was highly against it because he's never been a true pocket passer. He's never been great as a passer. He's always been run the ball first. And those types of quarterbacks just don't last in the league. We saw a switch from Lamar last year. It's not that he didn't run the ball, but he almost attempted to pass the ball first. And he tried at least to pass the ball first. And I think that's why they had a better season. I think that's why he was, able to stay a little bit more healthy throughout last year. But that's why I have them in right now as the number one team because the team got better. Lamar Jackson is growing as a quarterback, even as late as he is into his career. And I don't think that you can discount the Ravens, even though they didn't finish the best last year. When the team gets better, I think that should keep them, at the top of the list. They haven't had a crazy offseason as far as, players getting in trouble like the Chiefs or any other issues. So, I think that they belong there until they don't. And we'll find out, everything about these teams through training camp as much as they allow us to find out. Right. And then after that, preseason, we probably won't see a whole lot from starters. In week one will tell us a little bit. I think that teams kind of wake up the first 2 or 3 games of the season. And by week 4, you kind of know who your team is. So I'll put out one more prediction, sometime around preseason, before week 1. And then again, week 4, I think is going to give me the answer, at least the best answer I can predict as to what teams are going to make the run as long as they stay healthy. So overall with this list, I got to say that I'm happy with the Lions being at 3 on my list. I know you have them as the second team. But I'm happy with them being in the top 3. At the end of the day, I just want them to have a shot. Yeah. That's it. As long as they can get in, we've seen what happened last year. And that's the thing about any tournament in any sport, any playoff in any sport is you just have to get in. Once you get in, all bets are off. It's a new season. And last year, the Lions proved it. Nobody trusted the Lions. They tried to say that we were the frauds of the Vikings from 2022. Well, I think we proved everybody wrong. And we're going to do it again this year. Lions, in my opinion, have the best chances of winning the Super Bowl because their team is together, right? The team has gotten better. The coaching staff has remained the same or gotten better. But the core principles of this team have remained the same. I can't tell you the last time that the Lions have maintained a coaching staff the way that they have over the last 3.5 seasons. I can't tell you. No idea. I don't think it's ever been done. And the one thing that I will shout out to the Browns is I think the Browns are kind of right on the cusp, but that's why I had them in. I can't remember if I took them out. I'd have to rewatch yesterday's. I didn't make notes. My mind's just not the same. I forget things. So the Browns also extended their coach and GM this year. I can't remember the last time they've done that. But I found that really interesting that not only did the Lions extend their coach and GM, but the Browns did too. So I think the Browns are on their way. And I think that, the similarity between the Lions and the Browns for the last many decades, being the bottom feeders of the league, I think that is ending. And I think that you're going to see
on the top.
Huh?
After being on the top through the 1950s.
Right. Exactly. I think you're going to see a shift. I really do. I think you're going to see the teams of old, like you say, being the top of the league in the 50s, right? The Lions won 3 championships and then disappeared. I think that you're going to see a shift here with some of the teams that, like Washington. I think Washington's on their way. I think Arizona's on their way. I definitely know the Lions are on their way, and the Browns. I think that they're on their way too. Will it all happen this year? Maybe not, but I think the Lions have the best chance of anybody. Very exciting year ahead. What do you want to wrap up with? We're gonna end it here in just a few moments.
I just want to touch on the Browns. The only thing that I'm worried about with the Browns is what's gonna happen after Nick Chubb, because they had what was his name, Jerome. Don't remember his last name, but he filled in fine for Nick Chubb. But will he be able to do it again? Nick Chubb, with all these knee injuries, I'm not sure how much longer he's going to be able to play. But that would be the only thing. Is their running game going to be able to be to sustain? Is their running game going to be able to be somewhat what it's like with Nick Chubb in the game when he is not in the game? So that's my only question about the Browns. But I will end it off.
Yeah. They did add well, that was Nick Chubb, it was Jerome Ford,
yeah.
But they added Deonta Foreman. So I think that and they have Nyheim Hines, but I think that Deonta Foreman probably will eke out Jerome Ford for the lead back.
Hines isn't he more of a returner, special teamer?
Probably.
Or a receiving back as well?
Probably. He's definitely not your lead running back.
Yeah. So we'll see. They'll have running back by committee, and we'll see how it goes. Just like they have quarterback by committee. Unfortunately, because of Deshaun Watson. But I like to keep it light, so I just want to let everybody know once again, if you are going to be at Ford Field, week number 1 against the LA Rams, #boo them kids. That's all I got.
Not booing no kids, man. Not booing no kids. All right, so Friday night.
We never booed them before, but she said we did. So now we got to boo.
She was just creating drama. But Friday night, we've got the All Grit Pod is going to kick off Friday night. As we know, the plan right now to be Friday nights will be the podcast version. So All Grit Pod, join us on Friday night, and then Chef will be on his own doing his thing on the new channel. So we're getting things rolling. There might be a small tweak in the name. We secured it, but you got to hold things for 14 days. So we might be a small tweak. But for right now, it'll be the All Grit Pod at the All Grit Pod on YouTube Friday night. What time are you doing it at Friday night? 8 p.m., 7 p.m.? I think it's 7 p.m., right?
7 p.m., yeah.
7 p.m. Eastern. So look for that on Friday night. We'll obviously get information out beforehand. We've got some cool thumbnails popping together, and we'll be working on some banners. I mean, right now, if you go over to the channel, it's the old Rocked On Syndicate channel. So if you're already subscribed to it, then you're already subscribed to the new All Grit Pod podcast channel, which if you're not subscribed, go over there and check it out. Get ready and get your notifications turned on so you can listen to what the chef has to say about these Detroit Lions.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
That's right.
Ask yourself.
So interesting season ahead. We are in the lull season. So I'm going to remind everybody next week, Monday, I'll be back on Mondays and Thursdays until training camp. So it'll be this Thursday night, and then next week, Monday night, I'll be Mondays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. So I'm going to back it up an hour. It's getting crowded at the 8 p.m. slot. So I'm going to back it up to 7 p.m. And obviously Monday through Friday, Rise and Grind morning show will continue. I think Eric's trying to come back tomorrow. We'll see. I think he's on his way back from Vegas today. But we'll see how that goes. Doesn't mean we won't see Chef because he'll be around. But all right, you guys have a wonderful Tuesday, right? Today's Tuesday.
I believe so, yes.
It is Tuesday for me. So you guys have a wonderful Tuesday. I've got to pop into an appointment. As always, go on Pride, go Detroit Lions. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.